All right, folks, welcome to the very first inaugural Friday Night Hangout. I want to start off a new series here on the channel. Hi, everybody. My name is Roy, and I want to start something new here on the channel. I really want to have a different type of series on my channel. I'm still going to have all the videos that you're used to if you're used to watching my other videos and you really like those, but I really wanted to add something else as well here. And that something is this Friday night hangout. I want a time and a place where all of us in the toy community, those of you that enjoy my channel, can come on and just swap stories about things in the 80s, things in the 90s, everything that is nostalgic, everything that was a huge part of our childhood memories. And that's the reason why I'm creating this particular series. And this is for all of us to come in and to share. So the real purpose of this channel is twofold. One is I really want to capture that Friday special feeling that we all had back in the day. And what I mean by that, we can all recall back in the 80s, whether we were in elementary school or whether we were in high school or even in university or college, that Friday always had that sort of special type of feeling. You know, that feeling's sort of gone now. We were free. We were done with our studies. We may have had homework, but we didn't have to worry about that until Sunday night. When we were older, we got to go out with our buddies, maybe have a few wobbly pops down in our local watering hole. Maybe we would go out and clubbing or do that sort of stuff. You know, and now that we're a little bit older now, we're all a bunch of middle-aged men, especially if you're into the vintage toy collecting and nostalgic of the 80s and the 90s. That feeling's sort of gone away. And I want to recapture what that feeling is. We're all in, our 50s and at this point, or maybe just there. And that feeling is sort of gone. And, whoever came up with the term middle age for men in their 50s or 53 or 54, I mean, it's kind of silly because you don't see a lot of 104-year-olds or 103-year-old men walking around. But anyways, I mean, 40 or 45, if you're lucky, that's really the middle age. But anyways, that's a whole other story. I don't want to start off on sort of this depressing discussion about what middle age really is. So it's twofold. I want to capture that nostalgic feeling. I want a place to sort of hang out with other members of the community that love this nostalgic of the 80s and of the early 90s, vintage toys, TV, cinema, music. And I want to do this on a very regular basis. Doesn't mean I'm going to be here every Friday, because there's going to be some Fridays I'm not going to be able to do this. But I want to do this very regularly. So that's what the purpose of this specific series is going to be heading into the future. The other thing as well that I really want to capture is I want to, for future history, sort of put it on film, my own experience. I want to document this. The day that I'm no longer around, which hopefully will be many, many, many moons from now, friends and families can turn on YouTube and hear me talk about the stories and my own personal history. So it's documented. It's for the future generations. So it's really twofold, the purpose of this particular series that I'm going to have. I've decided to start off with the top 10 toys of the 1980s. And the reason why I'm doing that is because my channel has been mostly focused on toys, although it's not really what I wanted to do. I want to do overall 80s or 90s nostalgia, but it has been on toys, specifically with G.I. Joe, because it was a huge part of my childhood. And I think for a lot of you that have subscribed to my channel, it was probably a huge part of your childhood as well. So that's why I'm going to start off this series with the top 10 toys of the 1980s. This is really, it's interactive. I really want to have a platform here where everybody can come into the channel and then tell their stories, tell everybody what their top toys was. The man who L9HS, thanks, Optimus Prime, right here. Yeah, he is pretty awesome. Thank you. And that's all the toys I could fit up there. So that's all that I have. But I will be discussing a lot of toys here going forward. So the way that I'm going to do it is I am going to set out the numbers. So from 10 to 1, my top 10 toys. And I'm going to explain why these are important to me. Now, some of them you might just shake your head. There may be a lot of toys, real popular toys that aren't going to make my list because they weren't part of my history. I don't have that close connection to them. Every toy that I'm going to put on my list is toys that that were special to me in some way or another, and I'm going to explain why. So it's not about toys that were just generally popular in the 1980s. It's not about toys that have great resale value today. That's not the purpose of this. Can't really swap stories, that are sort of life telling when you're telling stories about why these are important to you in your life. So I'm going to present this. We're going to start at number 10. I'm going to show you what the toy is. I'm going to explain why it's important to me. And then what I'll do after that, I'll leave the floor open before I go on to my next toy, so that you can all then share as well your stories if you have any. So there are going to be toys in here that I'm sure are on your list that didn't make mine, but we'll talk about that as we get to the end. So this StreamYard is all brand new to me. So be patient. I have been practicing all week, but this is the first time I've used StreamYard. So let's get us started. All right. So start off at number 10. This may be a bit of a surprise to most of you. And on my top 10 list is Little Green Army Men. And I know a lot of you are saying, what the heck? This is not at all toys of the 80s. These things were around in the 50s and the 60s. And yes, they were, but they were also around still in the 1980s. And they were really popular, especially if you were a young kid like I was in the early 80s, who loved war movies, loved the military. I grew up watching, John Wayne in the Longest Day and the Green Beret and all these other action war movies like the Dirty Dozen. I love those movies. And before there was G.I. Joe and before there was other action figures that had rifles and guns and all that really fun stuff that we found really, really fun when we were young, there were Little Green Army Men. And I always had a box of these right up until the age all my toys got thrown out. And I'd love taking these into the backyard. And I didn't care if I lost them. I didn't care if they got dirty because they were cheap to replace. You could have gone down to your local corner store and just pick up a whole bunch of these. So they were just everywhere at the time. They had no articulation. When we were 6 or 7, we didn't know what articulation was, but they were just really fun to play with. And I always remember just having these great battles with me and my friends, just playing with these things. And I have a real special memory with these toys, in particular with one of my cousins, who his name is Bill, and we've talked about before. He says go ahead and use names, so I'm using his name. Bill was about 1 year older than me, and he lived about 5 blocks away from me. Now he was only 1 year old, but mature wise, I was probably 10 or 11 and he was 30 years old. He was probably smoking darts in the back alley at this point. Excuse me. So he was way past childhood toys, and he was never really into anything like this. But he loved to come over to my house, and he only wanted to play one thing, and that was Army Men. And we would go into the basement of my house, and we had this big, huge living room in my house. There was no furniture in there. We had this crappy purple, very skinny carpet that we had laid down on the floor. And we would set up our Army Men. So he would always take the German side. I would take the American side. I am Canadian, but Americans were part of the Allies. They were the good guys. And we would sort of play Army Men back and forth. And the way that we would play it, because back then we had to use imagination, we didn't have screens, was that we would set up on both sides and we would flick marbles on the carpet at each other, not at each other, but at the Army Men. And the last one to have any Army Men still up. I'm just noticed you guys aren't seeing anything except the screen here. Again, my first time on StreamYard. So we would flick the marbles at each other, and the last person that had the marbles, the Army Men standing up, would win. And because we had this real crappy carpet, these marbles would usually become airborne and would launch up in the air. And if we also hit each other's flags, we'd have flags on both sides. And if that flag got knocked down, then you would automatically lose right there. And we had such a blast playing this. And this really stands out part of my history, just because I share that real good memory with that one cousin who was really just so much more mature than me, didn't really, for the most part, want to do anything with me. But when it came to this, he would often come over just to play this with me. And that was such a big deal because he was super cooler, way more mature, was doing stuff that I wouldn't do until many, many years later at that point. But he just wanted to come in and have fun and do this. So for that reason, that's number 10 on my list. I'm going to leave it to the floor to you guys. You guys remember Army Men? You remember having these? I'm just going to go through some of your comments. So One in Toys in the house. So, and also Charles Pickle Bowen is in the house. Thank you for joining me, both you gentlemen. Johnny Ann, of course, I know you well. I know your channel. So thank you very much. And yeah, and the man who laughs, I just got it now. The man who laughs says it's a really cool way to play, honestly, and it really was. If you have any Army Men around, and if you have kids, you know, just go to the basement, rip their screens away from their hands if you can, and just go into a big room, set up Army Men on both sides, and just roll marbles at each other, at these guys, and pick them off one by one. And I guarantee you'll probably have a really good time. So that's number 10 on my list. Really fun. I know this, you know, Army Men now, you can still probably find them in giant, huge bags when you go to toy stores. They're all over the place, and they're really relatively cheap. I don't have any in my collection, and never thought about getting them, but I might. Really good memories here. All right, let's go off to number 9. So number 9 is the very last toy line that I collected, and that was Mask. So when Mask came out, I was losing interest in playing with toys. I was starting to get a little bit older. I think I was probably just before I hit my teenage years. So this was really the last toy line that I collected. And I really, really like the Mask line. And I'm just going to show you what I have in my collection today. I have the Piranha, which is, I had this as a child, really loved this particular vehicle. And I also had one more vehicle, which was the Skyhawk. Was it the Skyhawk? I think that's the name of it, Skyhawk. This particular vehicle I had as a kid. I still don't have it now. I know that Royal Subjects came out with this not too long ago. I saw One in Toys did a great review of this, and I don't know if this is something that I want to get in the future or not. But not if I do get it, it's going to be the actual original, because it just sounds like it's just much better made than what the Royal Subjects did. But that was really the last toy line that I collected. I only was able to get 2 vehicles. I loved this particular vehicle. I thought it was cool. I have a really distinct memory of this particular vehicle. This I got first before I got the Piranha. And I was on my kitchen table and I was playing with it, and it wasn't in its airplane mode, so it just looks like a regular car. And I'm playing it on the table, and I must have been about, I think, 11 or 12. And my dad was at the table, and he sort of looks at this thing, and he looks at my mom, and he says, "Why did you buy him this car?" My dad, who thought that, you know, boys should have been men at the age of like 10 years old, expected me to be in the garage welding something at 11. He's just looking at me. I'm going, "Why did you buy this? This is like a little kid's toy. Why did you buy them?" And I'm sitting there pressing the button and releasing the bombs. And I'm trying to convince it, this is not like, you know, a Hot Wheels toy. This is like, you know, an action toy vehicle here. This is something for older kids. And he sort of looked at it, and I think I convinced him to say, all right, fine, you know, leave it alone. But that is the biggest memory that I have of this particular vehicle. And I love this toy line. This is the other vehicle that I have to get, so it's on my list to get for 2026. This, and of course the Rhino, which is the big semi truck, which is just a real beautiful car. Love these cartoons. It was a huge part of for me. If to decide whether I wanted the vehicles or not, or the toy line or not, was the cartoons, because the cartoons is what gave it the story. So a lot of times what I would do is I would watch the cartoons. If I liked the cartoons, I usually would want the toys, and this was really the last line of toys that I wanted. And it was really super awesome cartoon. I try to watch the cartoons now as an adult, and holy cow, I don't, you know, when you listen to, I think Soto is his name, the Asian character, I'm just thinking, wow, this is something that would never ever be shown on today's TV. But hey, you know what? The 80s were different, and they were cooler, if you ask me. All right, so just if you want to read out the comments. So what do we got here? Charles Pickle Bean. The new releases are crazy expensive for a toy. I haven't looked into the prices, to be frank with you, but looking at what One in Toys and his review of that particular toy line and other YouTubers that have done reviews of that toy line, I don't know if I want it. It seems really fragile, and if they are expensive, then it's something that I don't want. So probably going to be looking for the originals to buy at a toy show or on Facebook Marketplace or something like that. One in Toys says, yeah, I should have saved my money and got the OG one. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do, Johnny. The Man Who Laughs. I've never heard of Mask. Oh, okay. Yeah, real popular toy line. Probably came out in, I'm thinking, 87, 88. It was super popular at the time. One in Toys, it's a great line. So many great vehicles. Yeah, there really are really, really good vehicles. Are they smaller scale? Yeah. If you're comparing them to GI Joes, they are smaller scale. So GI Joes is 3 3/4, and these ones would be about 3, maybe 2 3/4 inches tall. So yeah, they're really, it's really smaller compared to a GI Joe. Charles says these were really cool too. I think it was the Switchblade I had. Yeah, the Switchblade was the helicopter that transformed into the plane, and that's what these toys were. That they would turn from ordinary vehicles into something else. Switchblade was the leader's main vehicle, and it would turn from a helicopter into a plane. And the green motorcycle, yeah, the green motorcycle, and I forget the name of the green motorcycle. They all had different mask powers. Was a nice touch, right? So every one of the characters had that mask, and every one of those masks had different powers, and they all did different things. I think that the leader of Mask had 2 different masks, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, so that's Mask. That's number 9 on my list. And I want to go on to number 8. Now, 8 was a huge popular line, and it's very still popular today. And there's been all sorts of great movies and whatnot. And that line is the Transformers. So I think everybody and their mother knows what the Transformer is. Yeah, Johnny N. Condor, right? Condor was the name of the green motorcycle in a mask. Yep. And I looked that up the other day too, and I couldn't remember. Transformers was just super awesome, and it really was the first toy that I got excited about without the cartoon, because the toy line, at least in my part of the world, it came out before the cartoons did, and it was just super popular at school. I mean, the people were buying these things. People were showing off. When I say people, I mean kids in elementary school were showing these things off, and they caught on. They were just so super popular, but they were expensive. And I remember I went out there, or my mother went out there, and she bought me 2 Transformers. One was Soundwave, and these are some of the Transformers that I have now. So Optimus, I have Cup, I have Beachcomber, and I have the white motorcycle. I see a little bit of it. I had all of these except Cup as a kid. Cup is that's a vehicle that my friend had, and a real close friend. So it kind of reminds me of him. I just found this actually at a flea market. I bought it for $5 Canadian, which is about $3.70 American. Really great deal. Didn't come with a weapon, but I had to buy it. So that's in my collection. But when Transformers came out, my mom bought me Soundwave, which I absolutely love. And it is a fantastic figure. A lot of articulation for a Transformer. Still got to get it in my collection, the original one. But they were expensive. They were $35 Canadian. And $35 back in 1984, when these things came out, you could probably take out a family of 3 for a nice dinner. So it was a lot of money back in the day. But I got this one, and then I not this one, but I got Soundwave, and I also got this fellow, Megatron. Now, Megatron, when I got him, I absolutely loved the gun form. Super awesome. Anybody that knows it knows that you can extend it. It's got the long barrel. It's got the armpit extender. It is an awesome. But when you transformed it into robot form, it looked like this. It looked silly. Not zero articulation, but very poor articulation. moved poorly. You could just see it's all disproportional. You can't see it there, but where the end of the gun is on this particular toy, let me just go back here and where the end of the barrel is. It looks odd where the placement is, shall we say. Where the trigger is, which is even worse, which is under the abdomen, even looks worse. So it looked really silly. But I got this. And when I got this, the Megatron, the cartoon wasn't out yet. And I like the gun form of it. Yeah, okay, it's a robot. That's cool too. But then the cartoon came out, the first series, I think in 1985. And when the cartoon came out and I saw what Megatron looked like, I was pissed. I felt like I was ripped off. And the reason is because the Megatron that you see here looked nothing like the Megatron in the Sunbow cartoon. Completely different. And I felt like I had a completely different character, that wasn't the real Megatron, because whatever's in the cartoon is the real thing. That's the leader of the Decepticons. And I got ripped off and I got stuck with this thing. And I was ticked off. And when you looked at the catalog, especially when you were a kid and you're waiting for Christmas and you're opening up those catalogs and you look at your Transformers, and I looked at the Transformers that were out that year, which was the first wave or the first line. They looked ridiculous. They all looked different shapes and sizes. They looked like they were a completely different toy line. And of course, because they kind of were, right? These were things that Hasbro went to Japan. They put them all into one gigantic line called Transformers, but you had all different shapes and sizes. And I remember even looking at some of the Autobots like Ironhide and what was the ambulance called? I forgot the name now. But when they were transformed to the robot form, and I saw them in the catalog, I was like, why didn't they even complete transforming these things? Because they just look like windshields with legs and arms. It looked ridiculous. And that's because that's the way that they were. They looked nothing like the cartoons. I remember that was really disappointing to me, because I really had invested my parents' money into this, and I felt super disappointed that this was what we were getting. And I remember I really remember this in the Christmas, just before Christmas of 1985. I was looking at the catalog, looking at the toys of whatever it is that I wanted. I was going to tell my mom what I wanted, and I'm sitting with her, and I'm sitting with one of my cousins and one of my aunts, and I'm looking at the Transformers, and I'm looking at the GI Joes, and I'm like, which one should I go at? And I would look at those ridiculous Ironhide and the medical one, the ambulance, whatever it's called, and looking at the GI Joe. And I remember just saying out loud, I'm going to go with GI Joe because it's realer. I think I actually said it's realer out loud. And my mom was sitting next to me, and she just looks at me and goes, "None of this is real. You understand that, right?" And I meant to say it looks real, right? GI Joe looked like, all the figures look like what the cartoons were. All the vehicles look like what's in the cartoons. They're all the same height. It all looked similar. They had articulation. They were just much better built. And that's when I just decided, okay, Transformers is pretty much done for me, and I'm moving completely to GI Joe, and that's what I did. Still collected some GI Joe pieces going into the future, but that was such a disappointment. I still remember that very first episode where they're on what's their planet called? I don't know why I'm drawing blanks here. Cybertron, and they're all transforming these weird vehicles, and I'm going, what's going on here? But then when Megatron appeared, I was devastated, and that was it for me with Transformers. So just want to go back here on the going back to the floor to your questions and your comments. And guys, for those of you that are in here right now, I mean, tell your stories. What's your recollection with Transformers? What's your recollection of your other toy lines? So the man who laughs says, not really 80s related, but the block keys Transformers are awesome. Yeah, I actually bought one a long time ago, and I haven't put it together yet, so I have to put mine together. So that's going to be probably in the future coming up. Probably be on the channel, me trying to put it together. So they are so posable. Yes, I've read that about them. Charles says, these were my second favorite toys. I wish I could afford to collect these and Joe's. Soundwave is my all-time best Transformer. The tapes were cool, and the cartoon character is great. I agree with you 100%. The tapes that came with Soundwave, which I totally forgot, Buzzsaw and the rest of them, Rumble, and the other fellows, They were super awesome, and that was the best character of Transformers. In fact, the image that you see right up there of the Transformers logo, of the Decepticons logo, that's actually Soundwave's head. That's what they used for there. So, I mean, even they recognized that that indeed was probably their best character. So, um, a Megatron fan here with the man who laughs. Ratchet, yes, that's it. Ratchet. Thank you, Johnny N. Ratchet. I don't know why I'm calling you Johnny N. Johnny with one N, one in toys. Thank you, sir. Ratchet was the ambulance, the one that looked ridiculous when you transform him, because it looked nothing like what you saw in the cartoon, in the Sumo cartoon. It basically was a giant windshield with legs and arms. It was just awful. Charles says, Christmas catalog, you're taking me back, bro. Yeah. I mean, it's the 1980s, right? We're kids. You know, I don't know about you, but about 6 months before Christmas, July, August, I'm already looking at our local catalogs of our local department stores. I'm already picking out, circling things that I want. I'm already giving little hints here and there to my mom, she was the toy buyer. So I'm like pushing her and going, hey, this is awesome. This is cool. Oh, I really want this. I really want that. So yeah, catalogs was I think that was just a huge part of any kid that grew up in the 80s. And even kids, maybe even in the early 90s, were probably still getting catalogs and picking their toys from there as well. So the man who laughs says, early mornings with my older cousin, he drops so much lore on young laughs. Okay, so you got an older cousin, you got that information from him. Johnny says, I would circle everything I wanted in the catalogs. Yeah, you know, isn't that what we would all do? We just circle, you know, and conveniently leave the catalog open somewhere where our parents would see it, you know, on the dinner table, sometimes even on their pillows on the bed when they'd go to night, and they would just be luckily folded to the G.I. Joe section in the back, or whatever toys that you wanted in the back, and you'd have it circled the things that you wanted. I mean, man, we all did that. We all did that. All right, let's move on. That's Transformers. We're going on to number 7. And at number 7, this particular toy line, I think you can probably call it the ugly cousins of Transformers, but keep in mind that they came out before Transformers, and that is the GoBots. As a kid, the GoBots were always second best to the Transformers, right? You would ask for Transformers, or I would ask for Transformers, and my mom would always buy me GoBots. And I'm pretty sure that the reason why she would buy me GoBots is because they were cheaper. They cost a lot less than Transformers did. And then she would always try to pass them off as Transformers. And then when I would, you know, turn to her and say, look, this isn't Transformers, it's not what I want, she'd be like, what's the problem? They transform, don't they? They go from robots to helicopters to cars to planes. What's the problem? But, you know, what, as kids, we didn't understand maybe the financial situation. We only understood what we saw in the cartoons. And of course, Transformers was on TV every day after school. GoBots was that one sort of not great cartoon that would come on Saturdays, I think most times on Sundays. So, but this is what got passed off. As a kid, I really didn't care much about GoBots. Today, I absolutely love these things. And I'm going to show you here what I have in my collection. So what I have in my collection right now are these 3 GoBots here. And I don't know any of their names other than Leader 1, which is in the middle. That is the, let me see here if my arrow is working correctly. But Leader 1, that is, turns into a jet. And then you have, okay, so the arrow is working fine. And then you have the forklift, the orange fellow, and then the blue, the motorcycle. That motorcycle is so better built and a lot more complex to transform than the motorcycle of Transformers. It is super cool toys. And I had tons of these. So I'm trying to get the rest that I had. I had so many of them, but there's one particular GoBot that I have or that I don't have that I so want badly in my collection. And that is there's this yellow bug, super GoBot. So these were these GoBots, and these were the smaller ones. So these were about maybe, I want to say 4 to 5 inches tall. The super GoBots were much bigger. So 5 to 6 inches tall, maybe. And then there was this yellow bug, this golden bug. And I don't know the name of that particular GoBot, but I so want it, and it is number one on my want list for 2026. And the reason why I love that Super GoBot so much is because when I was playing with my toys on the kitchen table one night, my dad took that GoBot and he looked at it and he just loved it. And he says, "This one is now mine. This is my toy now." And I was like, okay, it's not a Transformer. Who cares? You can take it. And he put it behind the windowsill. I'll never forget this, in our kitchen, behind his place at the dinner table. He put it on the windowsill and he kept it there for months. And it wasn't that he ignored it. He would pick it up every once in a while. He played with it. He'd put it back. And it was always his toy. And I remember him always having that thing. Even when I moved away to university later on, he still had that thing. We had moved houses now, but he still had that thing somewhere around the house. It was still his toy. And obviously that thing's been lost now to time. So it is number one on my list. And the reason why, because I'll always associate that gold bug with my dad. So definitely looking for that on my list. So that is let me see here. That's number 7. So I just want to go to your comments and let's see what some of you got down here. Johnny says, Transformers was a huge part of my childhood. Johnny, I watch almost every video that you make, all the unboxings. I haven't seen one Transformer yet. I've seen Motu, I've seen G.I. Joe. Where are the Transformers, buddy? I haven't seen anything yet. So hopefully we'll be seeing some of those soon. The Man Who Laughs says, early mornings with I think I already read this one. Johnny says, I would circle everything I wanted in the catalogs. I think I read that one as well. Charles says that GoBots were ghetto Transformers, but love them now. Yeah, Charles, I think you said it better than I did. These things were just ignored. They were at the bottom of the toy box in my house in the closet somewhere. I hardly paid attention to these things. And the only time that I pay attention to them is when they were brand new and they would, my mom would try to pass them off as Transformers. And now I just love them. I really love these toys. I think that they are probably better built, the smaller toys, compared to the smaller Transformer toys. A lot more complex to transform, and they look a heck of a lot better. At least the ones that I have. They are super cool. Charles also says, I have a few in my collection looking for the bad guy leader motorcycle. Yes, Cycle. Cycle was super popular. And as a kid, I never watched that cartoon because that cartoon wasn't very good. But Cycle was the leader of the bad guys. And I didn't know that. I haven't, and I didn't really know that. But knowing him now, he's super awesome. And I think that there was a comic book of the Transformers where Megatron actually has a battle with Cycle. And Megatron ends up killing him or damaging him severely. And that's where Megatron then becomes the leader of the Decepticons. I may be mistaken here, but I think that there's it's not a cartoon. I think it's probably one of the comic books. I saw it somewhere on YouTube. Super cool, but that's how bad Cycle was, that he could, that they portrayed him in a way that he could actually stand up to Megatron and do well. Ultimately, he lost, but still do well. Let's see here. Johnny says, I remember that forklift and the seaplane. Seaplane is also another one that I had. It's one that I also want. And I also had some Super GoBots. Yes, the Super GoBots. And that's where that Beetle comes from that particular line. That's definitely one that I want. Charles says, I watched the reruns and Cycle is pretty ruthless. So I've never watched the GoBots. And if I have watched the GoBots, it was way back in the 80s and I don't remember any of it. So I might have to pick it up and watch a few episodes just to see that. But yeah, Cycle is pretty cool. Pretty cool figure. All right. So that is number 7. Now we move along to number 6. Now, number 6, I don't know if number 6 ever had a cartoon, but they did have a TV show that was super popular in the 80s. Reruns are still on TV today. And that TV show, which I absolutely loved, was The A-Team. Now, The A-Team, I just absolutely love these figures as a kid. This was the first action figure line that I started collecting. And Each one of these figures came with a ton of accessories. They would come with 7, 8 accessories. They'd come with 2 machine guns and Uzis and ropes and all sorts of things. The B.A. Baracus, or the Mr. T character there, he's stepping on what you see. Let me zoom in here a little bit for you. So it's a tool chest, and inside that is individual tools in there. And there must be 20 pieces in there. I have these 4 figures today. But I don't have these accessories. And I've actually looked into trying to get some of these accessories, and they are expensive, like stupid expensive to get these accessories. And I've just given up on that. I have the 4 figures. I didn't take a picture. Don't know why, but I have these 4 figures. And that's in my collection today. And like I said, this was really the first action figures that I collected as a kid. So this has a lot of meaning to me, and it does as well, because as a kid, I never had Mr. T, and Mr. T was one of my biggest childhood heroes. I absolutely loved Mr. T. There was Hulk Hogan, and then there was Mr. T. Those guys were my ultimate heroes as a kid. They were icons to me. They were the epitome of everything that was good and just. And I'm talking about, the characters of the 1980s. I'm not talking about, Hogan did his stuff later on. Not Hogan, but Terry Bollea, the real person. But I'm talking about these characters. These were my idols growing up. And Mr. T was hugely popular, probably just as popular as Hulk Hogan. And when I was a kid, I asked obviously for these toys, and I got those 3 toys. So I got Hannibal, I got Murdoch, and I got Face. I got 3 of the 4. I didn't get Mr. T. We could not find Mr. T anywhere. And I grew frustrated. And as a little kid, and I must have been about, I don't know, 7 or 8 when this came out. As a little kid, I remember just crying, wanting Mr. T so bad. And my mother said, she turned to me one day and she says, "Look, I promise you, I will get you this Mr. T. It doesn't matter how much he costs or what I have to do. I will get you this Mr. T. I promise you that." And she went around all over town, different towns, every place that sold toys, was never able to buy me this Mr. T. And many years later, about 2 years ago, I started to recollect a lot of my childhood stuff. And I was at a local toy show, and I came upon a table that had all 4 of these guys, all of them, not just, Face, Murdoch, and Hannibal, the figures that were long gone in my collection, but you also had Mr. T. When I saw that Mr. T there, I mean, I almost came to tears. It brought memories of my mom, who's long passed. It brought memories of her promise. It brought all sorts of memories, and I was just laser focused. That seller could have asked for $1,000. I would have paid it, because I wanted to get that Mr. T. I wanted to get the other 3 as well, obviously, but Mr. T especially. And I still have him. He's never too far from me. So there he is right there. Let me just get a close up here. So there's my Mr. T. He's never far from me. He's always in a place of prominence in my den, my office here. Absolutely love this guy. If there was one toy that I had to save, that I couldn't save any other toy in this den, and I have a lot more expensive toys than this. This would be the toy that I would save, because it just means so much to me, and it reminds me so much of my mother, and it reminds me of another fulfilled promise, which she never broke her promises, and she still hasn't broken her promise. So I have this Mr. T, always reminds me of her, and this thing is never going anywhere. Part of my collection. I love this so much. I do have other toys that I really, really love, and are really, really huge part of my history, and it reminds me of people that are no longer with us. But that one, that Mr. T, that is never going to go anywhere. That's always going to be with me. So that's number. So the A-Team is number 6 on my list. I just want to go to some of your comments here. Let's see here. The man who laughs. You might be a little younger, but you got him perfectly. Yeah, I pity the fool. He was such an awesome character, and he's a really great guy. Whether or not that was real or fake, I don't know, that personality, but he was such an awesome character, if nothing else, as a kid. Really looked up to him as a kid. I love it when a plan comes together. Yep, that was Hannibal saying, the leader. See here, Charles loved the show, but even 8-year-old Pickle noticed they shot a million rounds and never hit anybody. Yes, never had the toys. You're right. I mean, you got to remember that this was a TV show for in the 1980s, so nobody could get killed. There could not be any blood on TV because obviously they knew who was watching this. It was a bunch of kids, so they had to keep it pretty safe for everybody to watch it, so the family could sit around the TV and watch it. But yeah, you're right. And the times that cars would flip over, I mean, there must have been about a dozen cars flipping over end per episode, and nobody ever got injured. People just walked away like it's nothing. But yeah, it was a fun show to watch if you're 12 years old. Johnny asks, do I remember the Mr. T cartoon? I did, and I was a fan of it, and I watched it. Next week, this same time, I want to do the top 10 cartoons of the 1980s. So that's my next plan. So stick around or come back next week for that. And I'll have that as well. Charles says, I saw it and I don't remember. And that's what the show. And if you want to catch some of the A-Team, I mean, it's still pretty entertaining. You can pick it up today. It's probably all over YouTube. I don't know if it's on YouTube actually, but it's probably on one of the streaming services. And it's a show that, you know, if you have 45 minutes to kill, it's a fun show to just watch. And at times how silly it is, but they just don't make action shows like that anymore. Johnny, you still have the Mr. T cartoon lunchbox. That's awesome. That's cool. Maybe one day you can sort of show us your collection on your channel, because I'd love to see what you got in there. So that's pretty cool. All right, guys, that is the A-Team. We are at number 6. Number 5, I think number 5 might be a bit controversial. I think a lot of you are going to say, "Oh man, that's not a toy. What are you talking about?" But I think it's a toy. I think it was a toy, and I'm going to explain why I think it's a toy. So at number 5 on top 10 toys of the 1980s, I picked the bicycle. Now, a lot of you are saying, what are you talking about? The bicycle? Man, the bicycle is a mode of transportation, not back in 1984 or 85. This was every kid's magic carpet ride of adventure. Like this thing, if it wasn't pouring rain or if it wasn't freezing cold, I mean, we were outside. We were always riding our bicycles. We were going everywhere. Every nook and cranny in the neighborhood was explored, riding these things. We were trying to go as fast as we could. We were trying to learn to do tricks. And of course, all of us were always jumping everything that we could find. We'd go and find some cardboard, or not cardboard, but find some plywood or some 2x4s, and we'd always make jumps. It was always, what can we jump? What can we fly over? And this was it. This was one of, well, it is number 5 on my list, favorite toy as a kid. Today, yeah, you may call it a mode of transportation. I don't think any kid today is going to look at this and call it a toy. But back then, this was a toy. Now, this here, the picture that you see here, this is a BMX. So unless you had a lot of coin back then, or your family had a lot of coin back then, you probably didn't have one of these bikes. But if you did, you were king of the neighborhood, because these things were super hot back in the day. This would make anybody a king of their neighborhood if they had. Going on to the next one. These were road bikes, and we used to call them 10 speeds. This is what the older kids would have, the more serious kids, you know, the adults that wanted to exercise, you know, they get bikes like this. They wanted to pretend like they were in the Tour of France, and these things were super popular. But they're really super popular amongst the kids, the older kids. I remember older cousins having this, but these things weren't, you know, they weren't popular with, you know, 10-year-olds or 9-year-olds. The BMXs were, but for most of us, myself included, I had one of these things. I had this particular bike. I had the banana seat. I had the old crummy fallen apart bike. I had it with the little sort of handlebar thing with the foam protection device here that doesn't protect anything. I had this type of bike, and I would have so many adventures on this bike, and I did so many stupid things on a bike just like this. I remember there was one particular. I have a couple of stories. I have 100 stories with what I did with bikes, but I remember one particular time. Um, I lived with my two cousins. One was 1 year younger. His brother was maybe about 5 or 6, so a few years younger than me. And we were up on my street. I think I have a picture here of the street I grew up on. Yep, here we go. So this is my old neighborhood I lived long time ago. And we decided, you know what? Why are we walking back to our house? Why can't we just all ride this bike? We have a banana seat. We're all going to fit perfectly on this banana seat. So I sat in the middle. I was the biggest kid. My cousin, who was the older cousin, so I must have been about 9 years old here. So he would have been about 8. And then his brother was maybe 4 or 5. Now he we couldn't fit on the banana seat. That was became obvious. So what I did is with him is we stuck him on the handlebars, the very front handlebars. So this part right here is where we stuck him. So he's set up here. He's holding onto the handlebars with both of his hands, and we start rolling down this hill. So just want to show you this hill. Now this hill here doesn't look very steep, but trust me, when you have about 200 pounds on there rolling down there, it gets very steep. It gets fast. Now once we start going in motion and we're rolling down this hill, I'm thinking to myself, there is just no way I can control this. No way. It was too heavy. I couldn't turn the bike. I couldn't slow it down. I couldn't break it. I mean, this was gravity taking over, and we were flying on this thing. And my poor little cousin, who's 5 or 6, he's sitting on the handlebars, and we're flying down this, and we start verging towards the houses. Thank God we didn't go towards the street, but we start verging towards the houses. And as we're going towards the houses, I mean, I cannot turn the steering wheel, so we're going towards the houses. And it wouldn't be bad if it was a house that was what you can see here was just grass, but we were going towards a house that had a fence, and it wasn't just like a wood fence, like a white picket fence. No. This was the fence. So this was the fence. So this is either concrete or it's cement. I'm not sure what it is, but or stone. It is super hard. And we are barreling towards this thing. And my poor cousin at the front, he can't hold on. So he's starting to tip over. So his head is tipping over. So he's facing the front tire. His head is literally at this point a battering ram. And we're flying at this thing like at Mach 2. And we go into this with such force that, we must have looked like an accordion. All three of us just boom. And he came flying off. I get head butted in the back of my head. I am seeing stars. All I can see is my poor little cousin gets up. He is just crying, holding the side of his head. Blood is gushing down. His brother runs home as well. He's just bawling and crying. And I'm sitting there, and all I can think of, because, I'm a selfish little prick at, 9 years old, I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to get in so much trouble because both our moms are home. I am a dead man. So and I knew I had to go home, right? Because he's going to get home. He's going to be crying. Everybody in the house is going to hear it. And I cannot show up. I have to show up, or else I'm even in bigger problems than I already was. So we go home. And at the time, they lived upstairs. We lived downstairs. It was our house, but there was two boys in their family, and I was the only child of my parents. So we lived downstairs because it was smaller. They lived upstairs. And I get home, and I'm thinking to myself, well, you know what? Maybe I'm going to get away with this. Not going to notice. As I walk in through the front door, I can just hear this wailing going on upstairs. And I'm just thinking to myself, oh my God, I am so dead. I am so dead. And my mother is just going, what is going on with him? Why is he crying so much? And I kind of just shrugged my shoulders and kind of went, I don't know. And as we're both facing we hear the door upstairs opening and closing, and we turn to the front window and we see my aunt, and she's running with my youngest cousin, and literally blood is gushing down the side of his head. She's got some sort of towel on it or something. And I'm just looking at this going, oh yeah, this is great. Because my mom is looking at this too. And I'm just thinking, I'm never going to get away with this. Never. And she's just looking at it and she's going, all this blood. And she's saying, what is going on? What happened? Very, very concerned voice. And then she turns to me, very serious, looks at me and goes, what happened? And then I had to confess. I was like, well, you know what? Might be two of us going to the emergency room now. But she took pity on me. She understood that it was an accident. I think at that point she was more concerned about him than anything else. And I was very fortunate that day to not get the punishment that we all used to get back in the day, back in the 80s. So that was one of the stories with my bike. The other story that I have with my bike, and this is one that I usually tell. This was a property that was, this is a garage, and this used to be not far from our house. And it looks like a barn, but it's a garage. What you can tell is that the ground here is about 5 or 6 feet below actual street level. And I went back up to the at the beginning of that property that is a perfect ramp for the bike. And if I hit it hard enough and I lifted my front tire just at the right time, I would catch major air, which of course is what we all want to do on our bikes, is to catch as much air as we could, to fly as high as we possibly could. And this was the plan for me. So this was the plan that, I had. And again, I had the same two cousins out there, the same two troublemakers. We were all troublemakers back then. So I go back, let me show you here. I go back to the top of this straight, and I'm at the very, very top. So even further than what this picture shows. And I'm ready to come down, and I'm pedaling. And just before that property I just showed, there's like a little back alley there. So I had my cousin standing there at the back alley to make sure that there was no cars coming. And if there was no cars coming, he would wave me to go. So this was the big plan, of course. And I'm pedaling as fast as I can. I'm just flying again, because I want to hit that bump at maximum velocity to catch the highest air that I can. So I'm pumping, I'm going down towards that street. And I get the wave through my cousin. It's just how stupid that we were. I mean, even if there was a car coming, there was absolutely no way I was going to be able to stop in time. I would have rammed into that car, and God knows what would have happened. But no car was there. He waves me through. He says, go, everything's clear. I go flying. I hit that bump. I'm catching maximum air. I'm going over this property right here. I'm up in the air. I'm flying up in the air. I'm about here. I'm proud of myself. I'm about with the 6 feet or 5 to 6 feet. Probably altogether, I probably have about, I don't know, 10 feet, 12 feet up in the air. So I'm loving it. I'm thinking I'm evil Knievel. My cousins are looking at me. I look like this big, huge superhero flying through the air. Awesome. Except I had no plan for what would happen if something went wrong while I was up in the air. So I'm up in the air, and I notice that I'm starting drifting towards the left. So I'm actually heading towards this garage right here. And as I'm heading towards that garage, I'm turning the steering wheel to the left in the air, mind you, like it's going to do anything. Of course, it doesn't. I go barreling into that. I nail that barn or that garage, and I land partly on the roof and partly right on the side of that building. The bike wraps around me in a big U shape, like a giant pretzel. I come down hard. How I did not break any bone in my body is still a mystery and a miracle to me. But I did it, and I came out of it. The bike was it was basically a U shape, completely useless. I remember that evening, my dad came home, and I said, "Listen, can you fix my bike?" And my dad went into the garage, looked at the bike, sort of let out his little laugh, and shook his head. He didn't even bother asking me anymore what happened. I mean, this was a daily occurrence now where he had to straighten out my bike or fix my bike because I did something stupid. He didn't even ask. Straighten it out. The bike wobbled for a little bit. The tires were sort of all wonky there until I got a new bike. But man, what a memory that was. How I did not hurt myself that day, I have no idea. But that is the type of stories and memories that I always connect to bicycles. For that reason, it's always going to be a toy to me. It was such a huge source of adventure when we were kids. Absolutely love this thing, and that's the reason why I placed it number 5 on my list. Let me just take this back to the board. I know that was a pretty long story. Let me see here. So back to Charles here. I have my childhood Transformers and Voltron Thermos. Okay. I'm sure that those are worth pretty much. Pretty penny these days. Charles, our parents had no clue where we were. We would be miles from home. Just get your butt home by dark. Yes, absolutely. One of the great things about being a kid in the 80s was the amount of freedom that we were given. We did not have helicopter parents. It was basically go out there, go have fun, try not to do stupid things that's going to get you hurt or someone else hurt. Otherwise, just be back. My house, it was just be back for dinner, which was usually around 6 o'clock when my dad would get home. And that was the only thing. And it's one of those things that I think that I really feel bad for this generation of kids today. They don't have that freedom. They don't have that experience of going out there and learning things the hard way, right? Whether they were good or they were bad, they're not having those experiences. And once they get out into the real world, because they've been sheltered so much, that's when the world's going to drop on them like a bomb because they're not ready for it. They haven't experienced the world by themselves. And it's sad to see. We as 80s kids, we had all the freedom in the world and we learned it the hard way a lot of times. I remember when I would do stupid stuff like this and my dad would see me, he'd always ask me a question saying, hey, did you hurt yourself? And I would have two responses, to which he would have two responses. I would either say, no, I didn't hurt myself. And he would say, too bad, you could have learned something. Or I would have said, yes, I hurt myself. He said, good, you won't do that again, will you? So that was the way that we learned stuff. And maybe, I don't know if it was better or if it was not. It certainly was different, but I certainly loved the freedom that we had as kids. The man who left says, I used to ride my bike all over South Florida, beach cruiser, different time, just be home before street lights turned on. Yeah. So even in the early 90s, I suspect when you were riding your bike, the man who laughs, even back then, that was still the way that things were. A lot of freedom was given to us. There was a lot of leeway there, and it was super awesome. Diamondback. Yes. Those bikes were super expensive. And really, it was only those kids that came from rich families that had those bikes. Johnny says, spent so much time riding trails in the woods till dark. Then we taped flashlights on the handlebars. Yes. I remember doing a lot of that stuff. You know, we would have radios that we would take with us if we were going to go somewhere at night. We would have flashlights. The one thing that we never had while we were riding our bikes, helmets. Surprisingly. And we did a lot of stupid stuff and we never had helmets or elbow pads or knee pads. But again, just all part of the fun of experience of learning back in the 80s. Johnny says, so many accidents on bikes, but we survived. Yeah, you know what? Kids would sometimes break their arms, sometimes break their legs, sometimes would crack their heads. But I've never heard of anyone dying on a bike. So I would have bailed out. Is that when... Excuse me, Charles. I guess that you're asking that when I was flying up in the air. Yeah, there was no time to bail. It's surprisingly how fast I was going. There was about maybe 2 seconds between the point I launched to the point I hit that side of that building. So, or top of the roof side of the building. Yeah. You know what, Johnny, I tell this story to anyone that's ever listened to this story and they just laugh. They love it. And I tell them, yeah, man, that was pretty much me back when I was a kid. I was pretty stupid and how I didn't hurt myself a lot worse than I did. I'm really surprised. Yeah. You know, man who laughs, you said it best here with your comment. I love peeking into other people's childhood memories. That's what I want this series to be about. And that's what I want all the people. I mean, if you're comfortable with it, also to share your stories, is to just sit back, have a few laughs, maybe have some wobbly pops, maybe have some non-alcoholic beverages. By the way, I am drinking a little scotch here on the ice, a little Glenfiddich 18-year-old. So this is what I'm enjoying. Hopefully you are all enjoying a beverage as well as we swap stories of our childhood. So awesome stuff, man. I have to get more ice because it's ran out of ice. Yeah. Anyways, all right. So that's number 5. All right. What do we have at number 4? So I'm going to have to flip here through a few pictures here to find number 4. Number 4 is something that I think we all had as kids. And I guarantee you, all of you that are watching now or watching on the replay all had this. So at number 4, iconic toy, Hot Wheels. Hot Wheels was really the first toy that I collected. It's really the first toy that even before I collected, this was something that was already being given to me by my parents, family members. This was always underneath the Christmas tree, always in the stocking, always even just going on a trip to a supermarket because it was fairly inexpensive compared to the other toys. This was something that was always purchased, and I always had a ton of these Hot Wheel cars. Whether it was Hot Wheels, and I shouldn't just say Hot Wheels, or whether it was, I mean, that's just an awesome picture, right? That's like the 70s. They were just so well built, these die-cast cars. But whether it was Hot Wheels or Matchbox, these are absolutely, everybody had these toys. And this was really the first toy that I remember having as a kid. It was just all over the place. And I think because back then, and being a boy in the early 80s, it was really about giving that appropriate toy for a boy, and which of course it was always a cars. It was always either Matchbox or it was Hot Wheels. And I still have a few of them in my collection from my childhood. So I have two of them here that I want to show. This here, let me make this here bigger so you guys can see what I'm showing. All right. So this is a Matchbox, and this is a Matchbox that came out in 1979. This is probably the oldest toy that I have. And I've had this since I was probably 4 or 5 years old. Super cool how they made Matchboxes back then. The tires have little, let me show you, they have like little springs on them. So it actually looks like a real car. Grab the right wheel here. So it actually looks like a real car with the springs on them. A super car. I remember this, and I can't tell you how old I was. I must have been probably 4, maybe 5. I remember holding this car in my hand, and my little hand being maybe about that big as my 2 fingers and my thumb, and holding this car in my hand. So that is something that's lasted all the way from 1979, and I still have it. It's a Citroen, I think. So Matchbox. It's made in London. Yeah, so it's made in London. So obviously there's going to be a lot of cars, of European cars, because that's what Matchbox did. So I love this car. It's another one of those that I would never get rid of. It's been with me way too long, and I absolutely love this car. The other one that I have is a Hot Wheel. Special memory of this particular one. It looks, I know it's not much what you see there. It's like a little caravan. This is a Hot Wheels car. And I love this because it reminds me of the time of when I got it. And I must have been probably about 5, 6 years old. And my mom and I went to our local store, Safeway, to buy groceries. And they always had these cars. And my mom had already told me that at that age, she said, look, you can't get toys every single day. Wait until Christmas, your birthday, special occasions, but you can't get toys every single day. And this was just a regular Saturday or a regular Friday that we went grocery shopping. And I saw this on the peg, and I loved it, and I wanted it. And I asked her for it, and she said, no, I told you already, no toys unless it's special occasions. I can't be buying you toys every single day. And I cried, and I wailed, and I cried. And finally, she just looked at me and said, here, let me see it. And then I refused to give it to her because I was so ticked off, and I cried, and I was screaming at her saying, no, you're not going to buy it for me anyway. So why do you want to look at it? You know, I was 5 years old. I was acting like a 5-year-old. And she looked at it. She picked it up. She looked at it. She says, you know what? I really like this one. You know what? You can have this one. I'm going to buy this for you today. So it's still in my collection. I still have this today. Another one of those toys that if there's ever, God forbid, some sort of fire or something, and I have to grab, only a few toys. Yeah, the Mr. T first, and maybe these 2 cars, because these were the original ones that I had as a kid, and because I have such special memories of them. So for that reason, and because they were such a huge part of my really young childhood, they come on to number 4 on my list. And I'm pretty sure that all of you that are watching this are probably had Hot Wheels in your collections as well. Just taking it back to the chat. Johnny N, I think I read that. Yes. The Man Who Laughs says, my father was a big Hot Wheel and Matchbox and Leslie collector. Okay. So Leslie, was that the English brand, Leslie? because I'm starting to think that was English brand as well. I don't think I ever had those diecast cars, but a lot of dads were huge collectors of Hot Wheels, and they were just cool toys to collect that even our older brothers and our dads wanted to collect them. Johnny says that's a nice Matchbox. I also still have quite a few of my childhood Hot Wheels. Yeah, Johnny, and I probably can guarantee you that you're probably never going to get rid of those toys, those Hot Wheels, because they're part of your history and they're part of your childhood. So they probably mean as much to you as these a couple of Hot Wheels and Matchbox cars that I have mean to me. So yeah, you know what? We all have those. We all had those when we were kids. Charles says these are probably the first toy I can remember too. Yep. I think every little boy that grew up in the 80s probably remembers the Hot Wheel and the Matchbox being the first toys that they had. Me and my brother would jump them. We all did that, right? I mean, that's how we played with them. Make dirt tracks in the dirt. Yes, I remember doing that too. Smash them with a hammer and blow them up with firecrackers. Okay, I didn't do that one. I didn't never smash the heck out of my toys or blew them up with firecrackers on the 4th of July. I guess you have to wait for a special occasion to blow them up. I don't know, maybe. No, I never blew up my toys. I was really careful with all my toys. But yeah, I mean, we would throw them down the street. We would roll them in our backyards. We would find cool construction sites, which in those days was always open, and put a couple of boards together and jump them and run them and do all sorts of things. So absolutely great memories, Charles. And certainly I have the exact same memories that you do. All right. So that is at number 4. Number 3. All right. So number 3, a lot of you guys are going to say that is not a toy, right? Especially in today's world. I don't think you could call this a toy. But back in 1986, 87, when it came out, it was a toy. And the reason why I say that this was a toy was because you never saw. I don't know if you guys can actually see this. Hold on. Let me get back here. Oh, you can't. Okay. Here we go. This was a toy back in the 80s when it came out. And the reason why I say that this was a toy, because no adult would play with this. Maybe they might pick it up every once in a while, but you didn't see the type of gameplay that was going on, that is going on today in the world. Online gaming and having these huge tournaments. This was something that us kids did. I mean, this was basically active cartoons. This was our chance to participate in creating our storylines and sort of playing with our cartoons. And that's what this was. I got mine in 1988. And it wasn't a special occasion. I just got mine because I think I just whined so much. My parents said, "Okay, enough. Just get them one." I got this with Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt. That came with also the pistol. This was, and it's we're talking about 8-bit graphics, so it's not complex. It's nothing that's comparable to the gaming systems that is today. This was awesome, and there's a great Christmas movie. It's called 8-Bit Christmas. It's about a little boy's journey trying to get a Nintendo from his hard-ass dad who did not get him a Nintendo for Christmas. If nobody's watching, if nobody here has ever watched or watching my replays, never watched 8-Bit Christmas, do yourself a favor and go watch that movie, because that is exactly, at least in my situation, that was me at that age, trying to always convince my parents to get my favorite toy for that Christmas with a dad that, especially with my dad, who thought, you know what, you should be older by now. You should be more interested in other things besides toys, even if I was 10 or 11. And that makes sense because it's different for baby boomers. They had it a lot tougher than Gen X did. I mean, my dad was working at 13. So yeah, when I was 10 or 11, he started to get a little concerned of why I wasn't starting to think about trades or education or things like that. I get it now. I didn't get it as a kid, but this thing changed my whole life. And I think this really changed all of our lives in the 80s, because when this came out, I lost a lot of interest with playing with toys. And I hear a lot of griping nowadays about kids that all they want is their screens and they want to play their video games and they have no interest in toys. But I think, guys, let's be honest and let's be fair. When this came out in, I want to say 87 or 86, we all wanted this, right? I mean, I know that lost interest in playing with GI Joes. I lost interest in playing with Transformers. I lost interest in a lot of stuff because I wanted to play Super Mario Brothers. I wanted to play was that Tecmo Bowl. I wanted to play ice hockey on this thing. I wanted to play Blades of Steel. I didn't Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I didn't want to play with my toys, and this was really a huge game changer in pop culture for us kids of the '80s, because this is really what started it all and what really was the beginning of the end of kids' interest in toys. At least in my humble opinion, I think this was really the start, and it was a toy. Certainly back then, 8 bits. This was a toy. And I know prior to this that there was Atari and that there was ColecoVision, but those were really simple systems. They weren't anything like this. At 8 bits, this was head and shoulders above everything else. And this really became a phenomenon. I remember having cousins who would be playing their Nintendo systems, skipping school to play games, to try to finish them. We playing until 2 or 3 in the morning, hiding it from their parents that they were playing it, because this is all that they wanted to do. It wasn't watching cartoons. It wasn't playing with your toys. It was the NES, the original NES. And for that reason, the importance that it was in my life, how it changed things, how I really started to move away from toys when this came out, because this is what I only wanted to do. And even as I got a little bit older and I had other interests as I became a teenager, this was still something that was a huge part of my my play world, if you will. And this is something that I still did. So for that reason, I'm putting the NES as number three of the top 10 toys of the 1980s. I want to go into the comments section, read some of your comments, read some of your stories. Let's see here. So Johnny says, NES changed my life. Laugh out loud. Agree 100% with you, Johnny. It certainly did change. It was really, I didn't know this back then, but I think it was really the beginning of the end of my childhood when this thing came out and I started losing interest in playing with toys. So when I hear adults today saying, kids today, all they want is screen time, all they want is video games. You know what? So did we. I mean, Atari and ColecoVision weren't enough when they came out. Oregon Trail for the PC. I mean, it was garbage, let's be honest. But this was different, and this changed our childhoods when this came out, because all of a sudden this became the main focus of growing up. And if you were like me and you'd get, Nintendo Power, the magazine, so you could figure out, how to beat these games, or you would call into the hotline, the Nintendo hotline, to get help to get to the next level. I mean, this became everything. So I agree with you, Johnny. NES changed, certainly it changed my childhood. The Jason Voorhees game was one of my favorites. So that is Friday the 13th, The Man Who Laughs. Never played that on the NES. Charles says, maybe my favorite Christmas memory was getting our Nintendo. I still play it and love my Nintendo. It helps. I can buy the games myself. Yes, when we no longer have to rely on our parents to get us these things, we can just go out there and get them. Awesome. I don't have my Nintendo, long gone. I have a simulator that has all the NES, all the Sega games on it. I plug it in from time to time just for nostalgia's sake. I mean, those games, they don't hold a candle to what the games are today for, the PS5 or 4 or Xbox, whatever you have, but they're still a lot of fun to play. Johnny says, did anybody get the Power Glove? I didn't have that. Johnny, if you ever watched 8-Bit Christmas, they do a really good job of telling the story about how much that Power Glove, or they show you how much that Power Glove sucks. Because I heard even back then it was awful. You couldn't really control anything. You couldn't use it very well. Again, 8-Bit Christmas, if you haven't watched it, check it out, because they really smashed the Power Glove in that in that movie. I wanted the glove and the robot, but never did. You know what, Johnny? Probably a good thing you didn't have that, because they weren't very good from what I've read. The Man Who Laughs says, no, but it was the coolest looking accessory. Yeah, it looked really cool, but I don't think it worked very well. Charles, I did. I never could get into, I could never get it to work very well. Wasted a big Christmas wish on it. It just looked awesome. Yeah, and exactly right, Charles. It was really just a big piece of garbage that looked really, really awesome. So they did well in making it look good, making kids want it, but nah, it was just a waste of money. Johnny, I don't think anyone could get it to work right. Yeah, I think that it was just a big mess at the end of the day. It didn't work right. It didn't, and it was never popular because even if it looked really, really awesome, it looked like crap. So, more pictures here of the original NES. Here's some games. So here are some games. I had that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I also had the ice hockey as well of the games that are shown there. That TMNT game was impossible to beat, impossible to play. I never had a game in any game system that gave me more frustration than that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game. It was just an enormous headache. So that is number 3. At number 2, let me just flip the page. So at number 2, I think this is something that we all had as kids. It still exists today in name only, but it really is different today than what it used to be when we were kids. And when I show you the picture, you'll probably all see why. At number 2 of the top 10 greatest toys of all time is Lego. Now, this is how I remember Lego, right? Not today's Lego. It was this Lego when we got as kids. It was basically a box. It had a whole bunch of different size pieces, a whole bunch of different, it wasn't of things that you could build. So you could build a plane, you could build a building, you could build a car, you could build a truck. The thing about today's Lego, for the most part, is that they're almost like puzzles. So they're these big, expensive boxes that you get now of Star Wars or of Harry Potter or whatever's popular out there, and you can build one thing. Maybe if you're lucky, you can build 2 things with the box because there are such precise parts that are needed to build that puzzle. It's not the Lego that we had as kids. And I absolutely loved Lego as a kid. This was one of the first toys. Man, that's a horrible picture. This is really one of the first toys that I remember getting that I was really excited for. I loved playing with Lego. I loved using my imagination to build things. When I first got it, I remember being a small kid. I would build the planes. I would build spacecrafts. I would build cars. And my mother, when she would play with me, she would, of course, build, little houses with fences. And of course, I would destroy that and build like a huge gun. I remember we used to build these guns. Me and my cousins used to build these guns out of this Lego, and we used to put a little elastic band on them. And we would put an elastic band at the end, pull the elastic band towards the other end of the gun, put another Lego piece, and then to shoot the Lego, we would just flick the Lego piece, and the rubber band would shoot it across the room. And I remember we used to do that all the time. It was such a fun toy to have, and it allowed us to use our imaginations to create all sorts of different types. We weren't just trying to build, one specific vehicle or one specific house or castle that's shown on the cover of the box. We had access to build all sorts of different things with this. I absolutely love this Lego set. I love the old school Lego set, and I still wish that that people still played with this and not the super expensive brand name Star Wars and Fast and the Furious and all these movie like Marvel and whatnot. It was such awesome fun as a kid. And it really was the first toy that I had that I couldn't wait to get home from school to play with. Like, this was really the first one. The cars were the first toys that I ever had, but they were there. And when I came home, I played with them. But when I was at school, after I got this for probably even a year, I remember just wanting to get home so I could build a spaceship or build a car. And later on, when I started collecting other action figures, for example, I would build bases. So I built my first G.I. Joe base with this. I would build bases for my Transformers with this. I would build guns for the Joes or guns more for the Transformers. I would build everything that my little mind could come up with. I would put it together. You'd have a few tires here, a few larger pieces there, smaller pieces, different colors. It was just awesome. And I wish that, this was still the Lego that you could go out to the store today and just buy. And maybe it is out there, but every time I go to my local store, even if I go to the Lego store that we have in one of the malls here, it's just puzzle pieces. You're putting together something from Star Wars? Are you putting together something from Marvel Universe? It's not even this type of stuff anymore. So I don't know. Times have changed, but certainly, absolutely one of my favorite toys. And when I was going through this list and I was thinking of the toys that I absolutely enjoyed as a kid, this was number 2 on my list. Loved it, loved it. Uh, Now in the comments, Johnny says, I just never was a big Lego kid. I had a few, but it wasn't that big part of my childhood. I understand, though, why so many love them. Johnny also writes, and they have all the Legos on lockdown at my Target. Yeah, because these things are stupidly expensive now. I mean, I don't know how you're supposed to buy a Lego set for your kid these days, because I walk into the store and anything that's worth buying is instantly 300, 400, 500 bucks. And again, you can only build one car or one plane or one rocket ship or one building. It's just ridiculous. It's not this. This was a tool that allowed you to put your imagination at play. Love this toy, number 2 on my list. And now for the finale. Well, any of you that have been watching my channel now for any length of time will probably guess what my favorite toy as a child was. There's certain little hints that I've dropped, sort of like this, sort of like this. What is that number 1 toy? Well, that number 1 toy of my childhood was Voltron. Absolutely love Voltron. I'm just joking. My number 1 toy, of course, is G.I. Joe. This was the toy that I absolutely loved as a kid. And I'm just going to show you part of, this is my current collection now. Of course, I didn't have the amount of G.I. Joes like this when I was a kid. I certainly didn't have a lot of these vehicles as a kid, but I just absolutely love this toy line. And in 85 is really when I got into G.I. Joe. Sunbow cartoon came out. The after school Sunbow cartoon, so not the miniseries that it came out in 83 or 84. Sunbow cartoon comes out, after school cartoon comes out in 1985, and that was it for me. And especially how poorly Transformers were in my mind, what I've just explained, this was really it for me. I loved this toy line. I loved that it was military themed, which again, because of those movies that I grew up watching, I absolutely loved. I love that they were all to scale. I love that they had articulation. I love they came with these awesome, cool accessories, backpacks and guns and other things. I absolutely loved the vehicles, especially the ones that were built on real world vehicles, like the Mauler, like the Rattler, like the Tomahawk, like the Skyhawk. Not the Skyhawk. Skyhawk. I'm thinking of the the Skyhawk. These were all vehicles that were just absolutely awesome. And as they started then to move towards more of the sci-fi, once we get to 87, 88, and as I'm losing interest now in toys, I started moving away from G.I. Joe. But this is by far my favorite of favorites. And when I started recollecting these toys back in 2023, I was going to get all the G.I. Joes that I had as a kid. And then it went beyond that. I wanted all the G.I. Joes, and I'm still working on finishing the collection from 83. Joe started in 1982, but I only want the swivel arms. So I'm collecting from 83 to 86, and I almost have all the G.I. Joes and Cobra of that year, only missing a few of them, like the AVAC pilot, the His Tank driver, and really not much else. But I just love these figures. I love the toy line. I love the Sunbow cartoon. You can still watch that Sunbow cartoon today and absolutely enjoy it as an adult. It is so well done. I mean, compared to Transformers, compared to He-Man, it is so much better done than those cartoons were, that even today as an adult, I can watch and I enjoy them. Those vehicles, super well built. And when those vehicles would come, they wouldn't come fully built. You just wouldn't take them out of the package, but you would have to build them yourself. And that was part of the fun. So when you got one of these vehicles at Christmas time on your birthday, they would come out in pieces. You'd have to take the pieces off the trees. You'd have to build them. I have incredible memory from 1986. I got the Tomahawk, and I can still remember like it was yesterday, sitting at the kitchen table on Christmas Day and my dad having to help me put the rotors or the blades on the rotors of the Tomahawk, because anybody that's tried doing that knows how hard it is, and him sliding a butter knife in there, lifting it up and putting in the blades. And I so remember that. And it was always him. He would take the stickers on and put them on as best that he could, which was a lot better than what I could do in 1987. And I just love the memories of them. I love the memories of playing with them. Oh man, I have so many memories of G.I. Joe that I can spend 3 hours talking about them. And I've said these stories 1,000 times in my other videos. Special memories with a friend that I had with the Rattler, and going over to his house and waiting for his brother to go to sleep so he could pull it out, because his brother would always destroy his toys. So we'd have to wait until like midnight or 1 a.m. to pull out the Rattler so we could play with it. And every time that came out, it was like Christmas, because we hardly ever saw it. Just unbelievable, great memories with G.I. Joe. For that reason, on my list, that is the number one toy of the 1980s. They really can't do it better. The classified line that has come out is absolutely awesome. It has incredible articulation, incredible figure sculpts, way better than the O-ring figures back in the 80s. But that right there is the source of nostalgia of the 1980s. To me, that is the definition of what my childhood was in the 1980s. And from 85 until 89, what I wanted for Christmas, what I wanted for my birthday, what I wanted for any other time there was a special occasion that allowed me to get a gift, it was G.I. Joe. Absolutely love it. And that's why it's number one on my list. So let's go to some of your comments here. Johnny, thank you. Says, I love how you display yours. Yeah, thanks, Johnny. I knew that right from the beginning when I started recollecting that I wanted to put my figures in these dioramas. And I didn't want to just put them on the shelf, because I wanted to show them sort of in action the best way that I could, because this is how I remember them as a kid, and I remember playing with them. So that's what I did. I put them in dioramas. The other toys that I have, they're just on shelves. They sit there. They're great. I look at them, beautiful. But these ones, because they were so special to me, and I always remember playing with them, and always them being in action, I put them in action shots, and I put them in dioramas. So thank you, sir. Johnny says, same here. The Sunbow cartoon was a game changer for me. Yeah. The Sunbow G.I. Joe cartoon was awesome. It was absolutely awesome cartoon. And if any of you have not watched it, or maybe have not watched it in a while, go back and watch a few episodes, and just how awesome that cartoon was. If you've never watched it, go and watch the episode. I think this is in 1985, called the World's End. I think it's called The World's End, something to that effect. It's two-part episode. Two-part episode. So it's 2 episodes of one story. It is absolutely awesome. It's incredibly dark. And it's amazing that they were showing this to kids back in 85. It deals with death, and it deals with romance, and here we are 10 years old and 11 years old and watching this. It was creepy. I remember being freaked out when I was a kid watching that. But if you haven't watched G.I. Joe at all, go back there and watch. I think it's 1985. Watch that episode. It's just awesome. The Man Who Laughs says, I've always loved the idea of G.I. Joe. The Man Who Laughs, do you collect the classifieds? They're really super great toys. If you haven't, take a look at them. The display is low-key fire, though. Well, I'm an old guy there, The Man Who Laughs, so I'm assuming that that's something that's good. So thank you. Charles says, Joes are my favorite then and now. I remember getting the Sky Striker. That's what I meant to say. The Sky Striker, not the Skyhawk. The Sky Striker, awesome vehicle. Never had it as a kid. I think my dad liked getting them for us as well. So many cool figures and vehicles. I think dads loved them because they loved putting them together. They were like these really simple model kits that would come in boxes. So for them, I think it was just as fun to put this stuff together. It didn't take that much time or effort. And then they would go and put the stickers on. So I think that they really enjoyed that as well. Johnny and Joe's are my number one too. Yep. Johnny, I'm 100% on you on that. They are absolutely my favorite. Charles, lots of memories playing with Joe's. Me and my brother would set up battles and argue about who got hit. Yeah, that was always the thing, right? Anytime that you play with somebody else is, hey man, that guy died. It's like, oh no, he didn't. The bullet missed. Yeah, I remember having those arguments as a kid as well. Worlds Without End. Yes, Johnny, thank you. That is the name of the episode. Super, super. There's a lot of really good ones, but that one is my favorite of all the episodes of G.I. Joe. Charles, always watch the cartoon, love the lesson at the end, and knowing is half the battle. Yep. Yep. So they always had those PSAs, public service announcements at the end of the day. And I think that they had to put them in, or they felt that they had to put them in because cartoons back then, people saw cartoons as being giant advertisement for these toy companies. So they put those in there, from my understanding, to convince adults to say, oh, no, we also are teaching kids lessons. So, you know what? It's not all about commercialism. So I think that's why those PSAs were put in there, and they became iconic. They're part of the whole G.I. Joe lore. The man who laughs, I don't collect classifieds. I wanted to jump in on it. I'm a Ninja Turtle, Power Rangers, and Spawn guy, of course. I'm guessing that your childhood was probably late 80s, early 90s. All those toys. I don't remember the Power Rangers and Spawn, certainly. At that point, I was a young adult. But I remember the Power Rangers. I was already a teenager. And I remember seeing the show on TV. I didn't watch it. At that point, I was probably a little older. So I was in my teenage years. Ninja Turtles, I remember them coming out. And I was still in elementary school, but I think at that point, my interest in toys was dwindling. Nintendo had come along, like I said, and also if I did have any special days to get gifts, it was always going to be G.I. Joe. So love it. The Trader was a favorite episode of mine. Yeah, The Trader is another great one. It's a 2-part episode as well. So 2 episodes, and that's when Dusty seems like he goes onto the bad side working for Cobra because Cobra offers to pay for his grandmother's medical bills because she can't. I mean, listen to this story that they're telling 7 or 8-year-olds, right? Grandma gets so sick, her medical bills become so expensive that she can't pay for them. So Cobra comes along and says, hey, we'll pay for them if you become a spy for us, Dusty. So that's the premise of those 2 episodes. Again, just a fantastic, super fantastic G.I. Joe, the cartoon. I was thinking about doing a show here where I pick my top 10 favorite G.I. Joe episodes. I've been working on that for a long time now. So hopefully one day I'll complete it and actually bring it on here. So, all right, guys, let me put my big old mug here on TV. So those are my top 10 toys of the 80s. There are a few of them that I didn't put on this list. Some I had, some I wanted, but I never had. Rambo was an action line that, if you recall, and again, I think it was a rated R movie when it came out in the 80s. And here they're making, toys, and it was something that was so violent, considered that they had to give it a rated R rating when the movie came out. But they also made a cartoon. The cartoon was awesome. I love the toys. I had the toys, but it wasn't significant enough for me to put it on my list, my top 10 list. Another toy line that I really loved the cartoons, and I wanted to collect them, but I was just getting older, so I didn't really want to ask for them, and that was Cops. Cops, and I've actually watched a few episodes of Cops. I think it's called Cops and Crooks, actually, the official name. They're really good cartoons. I mean, at least the first 3 or 4 episodes that I watched, they even as an adult, they are really enjoyable. And the toys, even if you go today and you see them at a toy show or you see them at a flea market, really well done toys. And I think that the storyline actually continues on from G.I. Joe, because I think Sunbow also made the cartoons, and I think one of the female officers, is actually the daughter of Flint and Lady J, if I recall correctly. I know there's a whole lot of stuff out there on YouTube. This is where I'm getting it from. So, but I think one of them is called Fairborn, and Fairborn is Flint's real name, and I think she's supposed to be the daughter of Flint and Lady J. Super well done cartoon. Centurions, loved Centurions. I thought it was a super awesome, great toy line. Really good cartoon too, as I can recall. I haven't watched them as an adult, but it was these 6-inch figures, and they sort of came with these suits where you would they would have holes in them, and you'd plug in these different guns and rockets and whatnot, and they would be underwater divers and they would transform basically into flying vehicles and submarines and tanks and things like this. Super cool toy line. Again, it came out a little bit later than when I was collecting, so I never got into Centurions. Uh, I think that if I'd been a little bit younger, I probably would have got into Centurions. So that certainly is one of my favorites. So a couple of really big names that are absolutely were iconic 80s toys that didn't make my list because I never had a big love for them as a kid. The big one right over my head here, He-Man, Masters of the Universe as it's known today. I love that cartoon. I can't watch it now as an adult, but as a kid, I love that cartoon. I never got into Motu. I was not anything that was based on fantasy. I wasn't a fan of. I wanted sort of the real world stuff, especially military. And this was the furthest thing from it was He-Man. So I never got into it. I have a lot of respect for this toy line. A lot of close friends that absolutely love this toy line. And just out of respect for this toy line is why I have Battle Cat and He-Man. I have a Skeletor around here as well. But it never made that list for me because it was never that big of a deal for me. Voltron, didn't know much about it. Star Wars, I think Star Wars, I came a little bit late, so I was very young when the final episode came out, and I never got into it. Never went to the movie to see that third episode when it came out in 83 or 84. I think I might have been 6 or 7, so it really didn't mean anything to me. I remember looking at kids and having that had these toys everywhere, but it never meant anything to me. I certainly appreciate that they were the original 3 3/4 inch action figures, and certainly their market value today is through the roof, especially if you have the Boba Fett rocket firing prototype that's apparently out there somewhere, worth something like $1 million or something. I get it, but it never really was a big part of my childhood, and for that reason, it didn't make my list. The other one as well, Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters is an absolute awesome cartoon. I am currently watching it as an adult, and I absolutely enjoy that cartoon. As an adult, you can see the humor and the jokes that as a child that you wouldn't get. It's really well made. The toys, I never really liked them. I thought they looked kind of strange, especially when they had their battle packs with the little laser, and they had these basically look like little neon colored strings that come out of their proton packs or their guns or whatever they're called. I never liked them. No disrespect for those of you that do, but it wasn't a big part of my childhood. And Turtles. I mean, Turtles were huge. Turtles were big. I enjoyed the cartoon, not as much as some of the other cartoons that I mentioned. But again, it just came late in the game for me and never got into them. Had friends that loved the Turtles. When I saw my first turtle for the first time in someone's hand, I thought they were really super cool looking figures. I have again, out of respect for the toy line, because it's such a huge part of 80s nostalgia, I have Donatello. I have I think a complete Michelangelo, and I have a Leonardo. So I do have 3 of the 4 turtles. I don't have Raphael, but again, it never played a huge part of my childhood. And I certainly get it. I think that those people that are a little bit younger than me, I can understand why it was such a huge part of their world. I get it when they talk about, the movie coming out and the game and the NES game coming out and how big of a deal that was. Like, I get it. Had I been a few years older, I would have been in that same boat as well. So those are the big names that didn't make my list. What are some of the toys that are on your list of top 10 toys of the 1980s that aren't on mine? Let me know. If you're watching this on the replay, leave your comments. Let me know what I missed. Tell me the stories of why they're important to you. I don't want to hear about, oh, it's worth so much money. They have such resale value. I don't care. I don't care about that stuff. That doesn't fulfill the nostalgic feels of this stuff. Tell me your stories. I want to hear your stories. I want you to tell me why you loved the Ninja Turtles if that was your thing. I want you to tell me why you loved the Ghostbusters or He-Man, because I know there's going to be a lot of people that are going to watch this. Well, not a lot of people. You know, a lot of people watch my videos, but there's going to be a few people that watch this. They're going to say, how come He-Man is not on your list? You're nuts. I mean, tell me why it was important. Tell me why He-Man was a huge part of your childhood. So before I close off, I just want to go into the comments and just read the last few comments that I have. And I thank you for you guys that showed up today. And it's not a heck of a lot of you, but you guys showed up and you guys were involved. And I want this, this series of this Friday Night Hangout. I want this participation. I want people to come here. I want them to feel welcome. I want them to enjoy. I want them to participate in and swap stories of your childhood, of what you remember, and just, you know, let's just have fun doing this. So let's take it back here to the comments. So the man who laughs. If I started to get into G.I. Joe, what would you guys recommend? Toys, shows, movies, or even comics? I love comics as well. Comics, great. I am collecting the comics from my childhood. So you know what? Grab some comics from the original Marvel run. They are one of the biggest storylines of G.I. Joe. The guy that wrote that, his name is Larry Hama. The movies that have come out, especially the Snake Eyes movie, a huge part of that was based on his story of Snake Eyes and his origins. So you start there. I've heard really great things about the Energon universe and how they portray G.I. Joe in it. I haven't read any of that yet, but maybe that's something definitely that you want to look at. I think that if you take a look at, and you can go on YouTube, and G.I. Joe has a whole bunch of sites where they have all the episodes of the original run. Watch the first 5-part series that came out in 83, or 82 and 83, 83 and 84. Sorry. Watch those. I mean, you can probably watch that first run of 83, the 5-part series in probably, I don't know, a few hours, and just get into that. I think that you'll enjoy it. I think it holds up today, and I think you'll really, really like it. When it comes to toy collecting, you know what? Classifies are super popular amongst even young kids that never have collected the O-ring line. They're super cool. I have one here behind me. This is probably my favorite one that I have. So this is Spirit. This is Spirit with his bird Freedom. And these are just unbelievable, incredible little toys. I mean, you know, you can remove their weapons from their holsters. They're articulated in every which way. Yeah, in fact, flip him here. As you can see, the knife on the leg. If you see here, he's got a gun. I mean, all these guns and all these knives, they're all removable. These toys are exceptionally well made. So if you want to get into G.I. Joe collecting, I would suggest with these. If you've never collected the O-rings, then this is something that I would suggest that you start with. Well-made toys, exceptionally made toys. They are pricey, but they're a lot of fun, and you'll find a figure that you'll love because there's tons of them out right now. So this one happens to be my favorite that I have in my collection so far. A lot of it has to do with the Eagle Freedom. So that's just an example of modern G.I. Joe toys if you haven't collected. Charles says, I like the old Joe comics and cartoons. Toots are on Tubi to watch. I think the cartoons are on Tubi. Yeah, and they're also on YouTube, and it's free. So you can watch it on that. Joe Fest is the best. Yes, toy show I've been to, Augusta, Georgia, next month, right? I've never been, and I only found out about Joe Fest probably about 2 years ago when I started collecting. Certainly is on my bucket list one day to make it down there and just see it all. I think that Sergeant Slaughter still does appearances and he does signings. Larry Hama, of course, is the main writer that wrote the comic books of the 80s. He attends on a regular basis, so definitely is on my bucket list. Charles says, sorry, the man who laughs. I've heard that from some friends before. I bought a Joe Fest exclusive Delta Force figure. Delta Force, right? Is that Delta 17, Delta Force figure, or is that Delta Force the movie? Not sure. Charles says Joe Comics 1 to 155 are great. Yes, sir, they are. I have about 30 to go in my collection. So the majority of them are from my childhood that I've kept, but I still have quite a few to go. Let me see here. Sorry, I've gotten lost here in the comments. I've heard that from some friends before about Joe Fest exclusive data. Okay. Cartoon is available on Tubi. Yeah, it is. And it's also available on YouTube. Joe Fest is the best toy show I have been to. I'll take your word for it. Hopefully one day I'll be there. It's next month in Augusta. Lots of Joe Bros to hang with. Yeah. I mean, the usual fellows that attend these live shows with me and some of these other G.I. Joe live shows. There's one tomorrow morning, which is podcast from the pit. Oh man, my memory today is just completely gone. Maybe too much alcohol. I don't know. Podcast from the pit. It's all Joe talk. Comes on 5 a.m. Pacific, 8 a.m. Eastern, and it's on YouTube. There's so many great channels out there and so many great Joe Bros, if you will, out there that love talking G.I. Joe. My channel, like I said, up to now has been really, really focused on G.I. Joe. There is a lot of interest even in the vintage G.I. Joe. There's probably more interest right now on YouTube on the classified line than there is on the vintage G.I. Joe. So if you want to get into classified and take a look, dude, I mean, go out there and just I was going to say Google it, but put it in the in YouTube and in the search, and a whole bunch of stuff will come out. It's next month, August. Okay, so the man who laughs. You had a great show. I will be returning. Subscribe to you. I love the energy. Thanks, man. And I really love the fact that you showed up today. You're completely new here to this channel, so I appreciate that. And I hope to see you here next Friday for sure, because next Friday we're going to take a look at the top 10 cartoons of the 1980s. That's what I think I'm going to. So thank you, sir. Johnny, they are talking classified figures in the morning on podcast from the pit. So there you go. You want introduction into classified G.I. Joes? Hey, that's where you go tomorrow. Great shows. There's really great live shows as well on Wednesdays at 4 o'clock Pacific. There is Joe Fan 73 who does one every other week, and again, podcast from the pit does it every other week. So they alternate Wednesdays 4 o'clock p.m. and it's just all Joe talk. So it's either classifieds or it's the original O-ring from the 1980s. So if you want to get into Joe's and you want to participate in the conversations, those are two awesome shows to watch Saturday and Wednesday. All right, folks, that's it for me. I think that I've taken up enough of your time. I had a lot of fun today, had a lot of blast, and I hope that next Friday we'll be back at it, but this time with the top 10 cartoons of the 1980s. Already have my list ready to go. So thank you so much for showing up. Thank you so much for coming in and participating. I love hearing from you guys. I love hearing your stories. And if you're watching this on the replay, please share your stories of the 1980s, early 90s with me. Thank you so much. All right, folks, until next time, happy memory hunting.